Hello everyone, Mark with High Tech Legion. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Thermaltake DPS app for the Thermaltake Toughpower DPS G 850 watt gold rated power supply. It can be located by simply going to the Thermaltake website, and if we look at the instruction manual of the app here, it tells us this right in the beginning. The first thing we want to do, of course, is install our power supply, connect the USB cable, which plugs into the power supply, and then plugs into a USB header on your motherboard. And we'll see here, if you do not have the cable connected when you try to open the app, it will show you that and it will tell you there's a connection fail. So if we go to the Thermaltake website, click on power supply, and then we go to Toughpower DPS, we would want to select the power supply we have, and we can see the download DPS app option right here. And also we want to note that Java and Adobe Flash Player are required for using this app. Now I already have it downloaded and installed, so we'll go ahead and open it up here. We can see the nice Thermaltake introduction, and here we have the basic layout of the app. So once we open it up, right here we can see this is showing us our 5-volt rail currently. We can see on the left here our temperature of our power supply, our fan speed, which rail we have selected here, which is 12 volt, 3 volt, or 3.3 volt, and 5 volt, and we can change which rail we want to look at here. And then we show our amperage for that selected voltage rail, and then our volts, actual real-time voltage here. So we can see we're on the 5-volt rail, and our actual voltage reading on the 5-volt rail is 5.06 volts. If we switch to the 3.3 volt rail, we can see it's using 1.2 amps here. Again, on the 5-volt, it's using 3.5, 3.6, so we can see these are real-time numbers. If we go back to the 3.3, it's using 1.2 amps, and our actual real-time reading here is 3.34, 3.36. Same thing on our 12-volt rail. We can see we're using the amperage rating here, and we can see we're at 12.0908 volts. So let's take a look at some of the settings that can be adjusted from within the software here. If we click on fan speed, you'll see we have the little gear here, which is usually our settings option, and we can choose between silent and performance mode. Now when we select performance and click done, this is going to change the fan speed on the fly. So we can see at silent mode the fan is running at 484.88 RPMs. We go ahead and click on performance and click on done. Give it a second, and then we can see that our fan speed will increase. Now we can see our little tachometer gauge style here that goes up to 2250 RPMs. The fan speed will increase if you're producing more heat. So if the power supply was under a heavier load, the fan speed would run up higher than 716 RPMs. But being that my computer is at idle, this is the way that this fan profile is tuned, so it's not going to run up any higher than that because we're only sitting at about 27.5, 27.8 degrees Celsius internally in the power supply. So we'll go ahead and switch that back to silent mode, and we'll watch the RPMs drop back down. Back to right around 488. If we look at our Celsius temperature reading here, we can see it's reading 27.5 degrees Celsius. This will just show us our actual kind of line graph here, where we could see if this moved up or down according to temperatures over time. Click that again, and it takes us back to our tachometer style gauge. If we click on the settings tab here, we can click to Fahrenheit temperature, click on done, and it shows us the Fahrenheit temperature of our power supply. Now, if we look at our cost here, this is going to show us overall cost. Now, one thing that is to be noted about this is the cost of power is going to be different in different areas in different countries. So this is an estimate, and this should not be used to gauge how much your computer is going to cost you to run, but it just gives you an average estimate of cost of the computer. We can see up at the top here where it says time. This has been running for 17 minutes. So in that 17 minutes, we can see that it's showing me about 30 cents to use my computer. And we can see it's 1 kilowatt per hour equals $10. So we can see how it's rated here, again, through our little settings button. If we click on our watts tab, this will show us real time what our computer is actually using. So we can see we're hovering between about 90 and just over 100 watts, depending on different things that your computer is doing. Again, our efficiency tab here will show us real-time efficiency. So we can see the power supply is under very minimal load, running about 85, 87. Again, if we click here, we can see peaked all the way up to 90% efficient here. And if we go back to our voltage tab, this is our actual current operating voltage on our 12-volt rail. The same with our current amperage on our 12-volt rail. And if we go back to our voltage, we can switch over to our 5-volt rail and again see our current voltage on our 5-volt rail, our 3.3-volt rail, and see our current voltage on our 3.3-volt rail. The icons here at the bottom, when I first opened the app, it took me a few minutes to make sense, because when you do click on one of these other icons, it centers it. So we have a total of our temperature reading, which is 1, our fan speed, which is 2, which voltage we have selected, which is 3, our amperage reading, which is 4, the actual voltage reading, which is 5, our efficiency, which is 6, the current watt usage, which is 7, our cost, which is 8. So we have a total of 8 tabs. 5 can be highlighted here in the center at any given time. So as you're scrolling through, it makes it a little bit easier to know exactly that when you're going to click on something, it's going to center it, and now all your tabs are going to look different. It's a little bit, just takes a minute to get used to how the app works. And then it's very functional, as we can see, giving us all of our real-time temperature readings, the voltages, our actual voltage that we're using here on our rails, our amperage, as well as fan speed, temperature of the unit, cost, wattage, efficiency. So really this breaks down pretty much everything for us. We know how important the power supply is to our computer. So when we're taking into consideration purchasing a power supply, and we're thinking about all the things that we want to be able to have that power supply do for us, how many graphics cards we're going to be using, what kind of processor we're going to have, how much actual power we're going to need. Now that we've purchased that power supply and it's running our computer, here we have this great app that actually gives us a breakdown and shows us that all of that research that we put into purchasing our power supplies is actually resulting in what it is doing for us and how close it is to that ratings of the unit itself. So let's go ahead and take a look at the settings tab here. We can see language, and we can see the different language options. We don't want to change that. I'm not sure I could get it back. We can see clear electricity cost here. So when we're looking at our electricity cost, say we want to reset it, we want to monitor it for a full day, or we started running this before we really knew what we were looking at, we can go into our setting and clear that electricity cost, so we could get a period of time, for how much it's going to take for our computer to run for an hour, or possibly a gaming session. Next, we have the community login features. So once we log in, which we'll get into the sharing tab, then we can actually share the DPS app information directly to, as we see here, Facebook, Twitter, Weibo, and through email. Next, if we click on support here, this will actually open up the Thermaltake Global Service Center page, which shows us our different warranty information on our power supplies, and any kind of support features that we would need. Customer support at thermaltake.com for email information, and of course all your terms of warranty. Next, we'll go ahead and if we click on User's Manual, which I'm not going to click on User's Manual because I already have it downloaded, but that will actually open up a browser window and it'll automatically start the download for the DPS G app User's Manual, or the DPS app. It is in a zipped format, so it needs to be unzipped, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the User's Manual in one moment. If we click on Software Update here, it does the same thing. It'll open up a browser window and download the latest version of the DPS app software. So if we go ahead and take a look at the User's Manual here, starts out pretty simple. It's in Adobe PDF format. We can see it walks us through the installation of the power supply and then the app. And once we get through the setup, again, it talks about needing Flash Player and Java. Then it shows us our introduction into our home page. So it gives us a little information on the app itself, how to change some of the settings, how to look at the different settings. It shows us our 8 tabs here that we will be taking a look at. And then you can also see your efficiency in real time, consumption of wattage, temperature, etc. The description of the curve that you can see through switching that. It goes through the settings. It also goes into the record feature, which we'll look at in just a moment. And then, of course, our sharing function and our about, which we will take a look at, and also support in different languages. So we'll come back here. Now, if we go ahead and click on the Record tab, we can see that I already have a recording in here. When you click on the Record tab and click on Record, it will automatically start recording. So once it does record, it'll record for up to a 6-hour session at a time. We can delete the recording by clicking on the little trash bin here, and we can see that this recording is 0.27 hours. And if we go ahead and look at it, we can see the breakdown of our 12 volt, our 5 volt, and our 3.3 volt rails. Now if we look throughout that time, it'll actually show us a description along that time. If we watch as we move, let's go to the end here where we get some higher power ratings here. We can see the amps, 12.4, voltage 12.06, efficiency 90%, watts that were being used were 179.7, cost again, temperature, and fan speed. So as we're recording, say if we were gaming, we could see what exactly was going on with the power supply during that time. It also shows us, we can see here our voltage, which is a pretty straight line all the way across. We can see the wattage that was being used, the temperature, the fan speed, and then the efficiency. So it gives us a little breakdown of the power supply as we were using it without having to have some other kind of software monitoring it. If we go to the share feature, we already touched on that. It gives us our sharing options, and we can share whatever was on the screen of our DPS app. So if we were from the home screen and we click share, it will show us exactly what was there. If we were in our record screen and click share, it'll share our record screen. And then if we look at the About tab, it just gives us some basic information. DPS app, Thermaltake Technology Incorporated. Gives us the model name of our power supply, the software version of the DPS app that we have installed. Gives us a link directly to the thermaltake.com homepage. And also here, if we click on this, it'll take us right to the Thermaltake Technology Facebook page. So through this fully featured app, one other thing that I want to talk about here, we have our close, our minimize, of course, and then this. We can't just grab the app and move it around. So the little move arrow here, if we grab that, that's how we move the app around. So if we put it off to the side here, let's go ahead and bring up a little test. We'll just get this to start right away. And we'll watch as soon as we click on here and that begins, we'll see our wattage go up and increase here. We see our amperage increase, our 12 volt rail, our specific reading under load. We can see our efficiency here floating right at about 90% efficient, which meets our gold rating standards. And if we scroll to the right, again, we'll see the actual wattage being used. And of course, it's going to fluctuate because I just have a basic CPU test running. We can see our cost here again, which will just track over time the temperature of our power supply, our fan speed. So again, being that we're barely pushing this power supply because I just have a basic CPU test running, this is not cranking up. The temperature of the power supply is not cranking up. We can see we're only using, just under 200 watts here with a basic CPU test running on the 4770K at 4.4 gigahertz. But we can see all the information in here that we can very easily monitor. Efficiency, we wonder when we buy a gold-rated power supply, is it really running that efficient? What kind of wattage are we actually using on a daily basis? There's meters that can be plugged into the wall to take a measurement. But now this basically gives us the option to not have to purchase any additional tools and be able to monitor our power supply. And if our system is ever something just doesn't seem right, it's not running properly, we can very quickly come in here and take a look and make sure, is our 12-volt rail, is it dropped down to 10 volts? Same with our 5 volt or 3.3 volt. So is there something going on that's relating to the power supply? If we're having possibly a different component failure, we can look at this app and see and make sure that that power supply is supplying the proper power and kind of eliminate that as one of the issues. So not only do we get a great quality power supply, but it also, with this DPS app, it gives us tools that we can use to monitor pretty much our whole computer, how much power we're actually using, how much voltage we're actually using, and of course, the efficiency and cost of the unit, which the cost is just an estimated cost, as I already previously mentioned, and that does tell that to us in our user's manual. If we take a look at that, it does note here that the electricity cost setting, note the result of the estimation would vary from country to country because of the different electricity rates, etc. So it calculates the electricity cost once per minute, but as I said, it is just an estimate because of the varying electricity costs depending on where you're located. So thank you for being with us as we take a look at the Thermaltake DPS app to monitor your Thermaltake DPS power supply. As always, stay tuned to our YouTube channel and click subscribe right below this video for upcoming video reviews on products and as well as software and other interesting videos from High-Tech Legion. You can go ahead and see the full review for the Thermaltake Toughpower DPS G 850 watt gold rated power supply at the hightechlegion.com website, as well as go to facebook.com/HTL reviews, give us a like, and also twitter.com/High-Tech Legion to follow us on Twitter. Thanks for watching.